Zach's celebrity uncle, Tino's parents aren't buying into the fairy tale, and Rachel meets Tyler in the Jersey Shore dressed as Inspector Gadget. This was Hometown Week 7 on The Bachelorette Season 19.
Ow! Ow!
I am Liz Donatelli, and my co-host is Tiffany Current. You are watching Romance Recap, a weekly talk show on the Reader Seeks Romance channel that reviews and discusses dating reality shows. We are deep diving into a historic season of The Bachelorette, which follows the romance journeys of Gabby Windy and Rachel Recchia. Hello, Tiffany.
Oh my God, we're here. This was like the longest episode of my life. So many hometowns, too many hometowns.
Yeah.
Some were better than others. Drama.
I'm going to begin by saying I feel like the standout heroes of this episode are Mr. and Mrs. Franco, Tino's parents, because they were saying all the things that we as viewers are saying from our couches. And I'm sure they're saying all the things that were on the minds of all the other parents, but they chose to be supportive on camera.
I can't wait till we get to that date because I feel like that just shows you different classes of people. We had Santa Clarita versus Anaheim, and you could see a big difference in classes of people. I support Tino and his parents because they're just like, we are not playing this game with you guys. We are not playing this game. Meanwhile, in Anaheim, it's like, everything is magical and wonderful. It's like, no.
Yes.
It was fun. That part was fun for me.
It was fun. At first, I thought this whole episode was going to be a snoozer. And then it ended up on a little bit of, drama.
Let's start out with Gabby's date. Gabby gets her first hometown in New Orleans with Jason. They see each other. They dance in the street. They kiss. I'm like, okay, this is starting out pretty well so far.
I have to say, I thought Jason was especially handsome. I don't know if it's being in his hometown, feeling more confident.
Yes.
Because he does reveal something I don't think we were quite aware of, is that he was going to leave like a few weeks into it. He was frustrated and, you would not have known that.
You wouldn't have known that. And then you find out that it was Jesse that stopped him because Jesse said, whoa, actually, you're going to Paris. And he was like, okay, I guess I'll stay.
He's like, yes, I'll stay.
Free trip to Paris, and that's fine.
Right.
Yes.
So he was especially handsome, I thought, in this episode.
He was cute. I actually liked when they met his dad in the park and the dad brought flowers. I was like, that dad is so adorable.
So sweet. And he brought beignets too.
I missed that. Oh, that's delicious. That's
I know, they're good. They're good. Yeah. So I thought he was super sweet and so emotional when I would like to know, when was the last time any of these suitors went home? Because the emotional outpouring from their parents was like, they haven't seen them in decades. And this goes true for Jason. Like his dad was just so emotional. And it's like, Jason, you need to get home more. It sounds
like it's been like 5 weeks. I think somebody said 5 weeks, and maybe that's just a long period of time to not see or talk to your child. Yeah.
I get, well, I suppose so.
I mean, I'm just saying, Liz, but we see Gabby meet Jason's dad. I think they have a nice moment. And then eventually we get to Jason's mom's house. And
Jason's mom's house. Yeah. I have a question about Jason's mom's house. That's not really her house, right? That looked like a setup. That looked like it was a staged like hotel room somewhere, right?
I assumed that was her house. I'm not sure if he actually lives in New Orleans or not. I couldn't remember if he lived in New Orleans.
He lives in Santa Monica, according to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's in Santa Monica. I don't know if he works in investments or something.
I don't know. I assumed that was her place. Usually it's at the person's place. So I assumed it was her place. But what I thought was interesting is that right when she saw him, she just started crying. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, she started crying. He seemed... Jason seems very unemotional, but I think it's because he's, very reserved.
He's trying to keep it in. Yeah, that was true because she's so emotional and he's like the complete opposite of just like, why are you crying? What's going?
I was starting to wonder about him just a little bit.
So they meet Jason's mom and his sister, and I think they were going along really well. And at some point, Gabby gets pulled aside for a private conversation, I think with the mom and the sister. And Gabby asked, could he be with someone like me?
Yes.
And I thought, oh, Gabby. Gabby's always kind of concerned that she's not good enough. And that's That makes
I
me feel sad
I
for her.
think what's particularly concerning to Gabby is the vast difference in their
Yes.
personalities. She's very outgoing, very wears her heart on her sleeve. Jason is the complete opposite. So her concern seems to be, am I going to be too much for Jason? But I also think she's thinking, is he going to be enough for me, because he's not
Yes.
very effusive. So I feel like, yes, her confidence issues and her insecurities about her being broken coming into play here. But I also feel that the unspoken question to herself is, and do I want to be with someone who's so different than me?
That's fair. Yeah. I think that's probably true because she actually said that. She said, does it make sense? She asked his mom, and the mom said, I think it'd be a good balance. And that's
Yes.
true. That's a good, because I don't know if you want someone who's exactly like you, because that could be exhausting because we
Yeah.
all have our own issues.
Yeah.
So it could be a good balance.
Yes. Jason reveals to the mom that he can't see himself getting engaged at this point,
Yes.
and that he
Yes.
hasn't told Gabby. Now,
Yes.
I feel like that's reasonable because, yeah, they've just met, but we all know the end game for this show is to get engaged. And that's what Gabby and Rachel are seeking. So I thought that was interesting that in all these conversations, as we learn in this episode, suitors are like, I didn't say
They're
anything
like,
to her, but I don't really want.
marriage.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about marriage?
Yes.
I allowed it because he said I couldn't see myself getting engaged at this point, which
Right.
indicates in the future he could. But what I thought was interesting about that conversation is that his mom once again got emotional when he said that.
Did.
And she said she didn't want him to lose something because he was basically all up in his head. And I thought that was interesting, that maybe Jason is a person that, maybe gets in his head about things and lets things slip by. And the mom was just really concerned about him.
I feel like Jason, being he's a deep thinker, he's also thinking, hey, if I do get engaged to her, the media circus will continue. Because let's face it, he'll be in the media then forever. And I have a feeling that that might be something he's not stating, but something he's considering deeply, is that he's not that personality. He doesn't really want beyond the show to be in the public eye. I could be projecting. I don't know, but
I think you're right, because he seems like a type of person that doesn't want to be front and center, and this show is making that happen for him, and he seems very uncomfortable by it.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how he agreed to be on the show.
I don't know either. Like when I heard him saying all this stuff to his mom, I'm thinking, how did you get on this show? Like clearly you've seen it. I mean, people are front and center, and then it's all about being reality TV. So it's so interesting for someone like him to be like,
yeah,
I think this was, or maybe he thought it was a good idea to put himself out there, try something different. And then he's like, this was a bad idea.
I think you're right. I think you're right, because if after a few weeks, he was ready to go. And that's the other thing is, he said after 2 weeks, he was ready to go. We saw no indication of that. Of course, cameras aren't on him 24/7, but usually with the other suitors, you could see kind of what they're feeling. The fact that he can mask his feelings so well, I don't think is going to work very well with Gabby, because she'll always be like, I don't understand. I don't get any cues from you on how you're feeling. So I felt less confident about their relationship going forward after this.
I agree. After this date, I was like, I'm not sure he's the right fit for Gabby, because she is very much like, she doesn't necessarily need somebody who's front and center, but somebody who could be not, I guess, so afraid of it. So I don't necessarily know if they're a good fit. So let's get to the next date. Rachel and Zach in Anaheim. She sees Zach, she runs, she jumps in his arms. Did you believe it? When I saw her jump in his arms, I thought, Liz is going to call bullshit on this. She's not going to buy this emotion from her.
Well, that moment I bought into. It's the moment when he showed her that they were going to sit atop a roof and watch planes.
Yes.
Her reaction, she was so giddy to the point of, okay, Rachel, this is ridiculous. That moment I didn't buy. She was overly like, I thought she was going to break into manic laughter and they'd have to drag her away. She was way too excited. I was able to buy into her jumping into arms, because that seems to be her MO.
Yeah, that's
the guy and she jumps in their arms.
You're just looking at plane rides. Like, let's relax. It's okay. No, you're a pilot. You see this all the time. But
you know what's interesting is she's like, oh, that plane there, that's like the type of plane that I fly. But I thought she flew commercial planes. I
don't know if they ever said what type of plane she flies. We know that she flies a plane.
So I don't understand what her job is then, because what do the people who drive those planes do? Are they crop dusters? You know, where you like
I know what you're talking about.
I don't know. Like, all right.
Does she put out fires? I don't know what she does. I just know that she flies the plane. But we leave that weird date on top of the building watching planes. And then we go to meet Zach's family. And as he's going around the room, who does he stop on, Liz?
Actor Patrick Warburton, who is his uncle.
It was when I saw him, I'm like, is that the guy from Rules from Engagement? I'm like, no. I'm like, it is. It's Putty. It's Putty from Seinfeld.
It's David Putty. It's David Putty. And he also plays a character does the voice on the Family Guy.
The Family Guy.
And I can't think of the name of the character, but he's the police officer in the show. So yes, so that was exciting. He didn't need to be there. But
he didn't need to be there, but I was like, this is exciting now. Finally, I have something to watch. We go around the family and they start asking her very politely, like, are you sure this is the right decision? These are just like softballs. Like, really easy. And they're like, she's like, yeah. They're like, okay, I believe you. I believe you. We like you. Zach likes you. We all love you.
Yeah. Everyone, welcoming. You're right. It was all very like, we don't know you, but you're incredible. And you're the best thing that's ever happened to our family and to our son. But I did feel like Zach's dad needed a little bit of finessing by Rachel, because he said something that to me was hilarious. And she allayed his concerns with her answers, which I thought weren't that great anyway. But Zach's dad, Mr. Shallcross, says, you know, all the awesome experiences, you go to the most romantic places on earth, and you'll fall in love with the monkey.
Yes,
so
I remember that.
What attracted you to my son?
I remember that. Yeah, that was cute. That was cute. But it's true. I mean, if you have romance built around you, you will fall in love. But at the very end of their family date, they all sit together on a couch and they watch the love story of Zach and Rachel. And what was hilarious is, you know, the final shot is like the two of them kissing in the hot tub or something. And I was like, awkward, like their expressions, like that's awkward.
And the father was like, you guys know you're not married yet, huh? And I was like, this is so weird.
I liked his dad.
I did think it was cute to come full circle where their first date, they're watching the home movies of them as kids with their families. And then at the end, they have this outdoor projection and the family's watching that first episode of them watching their childhood home movies. And at the end, Zach again said to Rachel, I am in love with you. And she said, oh my gosh, and kissed him.
Yes, that is true.
But then later on, she does say to us, one-on-one on the camera, not to him, that she's falling for Zach. And I say, I don't believe you.
Nope.
Let's get on to the next date, which is Gabby and Johnny. And can I just say, when I saw Gabby walking down to see Johnny, I thought they're straight up Bonnie and Clyde. Like I could totally see them together as a couple, like doing like crazy stuff and like, you know, robbing banks. Like their energy together is just so like Fast and Furious.
That is a really interesting observation. I have to say that I agree. They seem to have a very strong chemistry built on sexual attraction and their fun-loving personalities.
Yes.
But by the end of this date, this hometown date, I was like, I don't think that's really the stuff that longevity is made of. So it's not. Get into that. But they're in Palm Beach, Florida, I should mention. And, you know, I didn't know if you were going to say this, but Johnny lifts up his arms and he's got tats.
Yes, tats.
So I was like, I wonder what Tiffany thinks. I feel like it wasn't as impressive.
It wasn't as sexy as Tyler's. Something about, I noticed the tattoos, yes, but I didn't get the same reaction that I got to Tyler's.
Me too. Yeah.
Because maybe from Johnny, it's expected.
Yeah, I think
so. Tyler, it is not expected.
It was not.
Like, what's he doing with tattoos?
There's something sexy in the unexpected. Excellent point.
Yes. So we get to Johnny. Johnny goes and he takes Gabby to see her family. And basically, the family more or less approves. But they say things kind of off camera. The mom says he doesn't generally give his heart to anyone. And I thought, that's interesting and not a good sign for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. The mom was letting out some truth bombs in between all the nicey nicey. And
Yes.
she even said at one point, Johnny loves to be in love.
Yes.
Ah, okay. We hear what
Yes.
you're saying. Wink, wink, Mrs. Johnny.
Yes. Yes.
Whatever his
She was
last name
given
is.
some, she was saying some, his last name is just Johnny. But
Yeah.
basically though, we went from there to see Johnny talking to both his mom and his dad and him saying that he's just not there yet. He's not ready. And he was really having some for Jason. He said he's not ready yet. Johnny was just like, I'm just not ready, y'all. I'm just not ready.
And again, no, I haven't mentioned anything to Gabby yet. So that's going to be an interesting conversation, perhaps for next week.
But then we move on to Tyler Rachel date in your favorite state of all time, New Jersey.
Oh, you know how much I love New Jersey, especially Wildwood, Jersey Shore. Oh, yeah.
They go to the Jersey Shore, and you know what? Tyler's having a good time. They're playing games. He's laughing. He's joking. He takes her to a pizza place where he proceeds to introduce Rachel, stop it, to his family and friends.
Yeah.
They leave the pizza place. And then the breakdown happens.
The breakdown. First of all, I'd like to say that I was distracted this entire date by the fact that Rachel wore a full-length, oversized trench coat in the style of Inspector Gadget. Inspector Gadget. She looked like she was running around trying to solve a crime.
Stop it.
You know what the
The
crime
crime
was?
of passion.
The crime of passion, the crime breaking Tyler's heart. This date tore my heart out.
Oh no.
It tore my heart out. Yeah. So in answer to the question that you asked to set up the next part of the conversation, Rachel starts freaking out because she knows in her gut that Tyler is not the one for her. She does not want to go meet his family in the evening and drag them into it. So she talks to the producer, and the producer brings her into the women's room. So we have we just have a voiceover echoing of them in the women's room, her saying, I think I'm going to throw up. I feel sick. I can't do this. I'm a horrible person. And so on. So then she sits Tyler down, and man, I don't think
on a bench, mind you.
On a bench.
What's happening with these breakups on the bench? We had Nate and Gabby on a bench breakup, and now we had Rachel and Tyler on a bench breakup. And
bench breakups, they're hot.
She hashtag bench breakups. She sits him down, and he immediately launches into the sweetest things in the world. He says, like, you mean so much to me. I can't wait for you to meet my parents. And then he goes on to say, I am in love with you.
Yeah.
Cut to Rachel's face.
Yeah.
She had a serious facial reaction to that truth bomb. And I was like, oh my God.
She looked like someone kicked her in the stomach. Like she felt that in a visceral way that he said that. She's like, oh, I've got to tell him. She kept beating around the bush, which was starting to annoy me because she's like, you're so amazing. You're so amazing. And I never thought I'd meet someone so incredible like you. And he's just smiling. I was like, oh my God, I don't think he sees what's coming. He doesn't see what's coming. And she admits, I can't come see your family. I care about you, but I don't think we could get there together. We can't get there. I can't get there with you.
She's not 100% confident. And man, brutal.
He took it so well. He thanked her for helping him to feel love again and know that love can happen again. He told her that forever love is real and you'll find it. And which of course makes her feel worse that he's taking it so well. As it should. But do you know what really broke my heart is knowing that they still were going to watch him go in and break the news to his family, who's eagerly awaiting Rachel and Tyler's arrival. And they've got like a cold cut and cheese platter all ready to go. I said, I don't believe this. We're going to follow him coming in. And they're so excited to see him. And he's like,
they're like, oh, he's home. And it's like, and he's by himself.
And the mom's face, she was like dejected. And he's like, oh no, he goes, it hurts. And he says, I still love her. I was like, oh my God, I can't. I was like, I can't. I got to get a snack. I need comfort. I can't watch this anymore.
it was tough to watch because he was very kind about it. But I will say we say our final goodbye to Tyler.
Bye-bye.
And then we move on to the Eric and Gabby date. Okay. I still don't get Eric. It was nice meeting his family to see where he came from. Maybe he's a nice guy. Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't get a feeling of him from him,
No.
but let's just set the scene. So they go first, we see them in a park and we discover that Eric's dad has had cancer multiple times, comes close to death multiple times, doing very poorly. I had no idea. Did he say this earlier? I think this was the first time we'd heard about this.
This is the first time, it was ever stated. He might have alluded to family stuff, but this is the first time he said his dad is battling terminal cancer. So I was pretty shocked.
I know.
Gabby did not seem shocked, so I think she might have known that.
He must have told her. I'm sure if they're, being this intimate that he would have told her, but he takes her to his house and Eric's grandparents were very sweet. They said, "Oh, we watched you on The Bachelor." And I was like, "Oh,
the grandfather was adorable." He's like, "I watched you on The Bachelor. I know it. I know Gabby. She's like, yeah,
It's so cute.
He was adorable.
Eric and Gabby, they talk to Eric's dad, and you can tell he's obviously been through the ringer, but and he says, I really wanted you to meet her because of how much he means to her. Yeah. And it was tough to watch, but it was also sweet. It was nice to see him talking to his family. And then we see, I think, basically Eric talks to his mom and we find out that his dad is getting worse. And I'm like, this is really sad.
It was. Actually, this is the first time I seriously cried on this show throughout that whole segment with the dad. I thought it was really brave of the dad to go on camera, knowing that what a show of strength and support for Eric.
Yes.
And I believe that really impressed Gabby, seeing the family Eric came from. The thing that concerned me is that Eric, in speaking to his father with Gabby, is like, I seriously like her. And
yeah, I know.
Okay, maybe be a little bit more effusive.
Yeah. Maybe use the L word in there. He's like, she's kind of cute.
Right. It seemed kind of, he was, I don't know, underplaying his feelings or maybe but I still feel like I don't know Eric any better. Once they went out to dinner after spending time with the parents, with the family, he's sitting there with Gabby and he actually started to smile a little bit. And you're
like, he's not a robot.
Right.
He's a real person. You know who he reminds me of? I don't know if I've said it before, but he reminds me of Bradley Cooper, in The Hangover. And so maybe that's why I'm not trusting him, because I'm putting it together with that persona. I don't know, but I'm getting a Bradley Cooper vibe. But I think he's a good person. Because
he must be decent. I would imagine everybody's baseline is decent,
He's getting a weird edit. All I know is that the producers are doing a very weird edit of him because I don't know him as a person.
Yeah.
But he comes from a really good family who seems very committed to each other. So I'm assuming he's a good person. I don't know, y'all. I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting. Is this a product of editing that we don't feel any closer to Eric, although Gabby seems to be serious about him, very serious?
To be fair, she's always been into Eric from the very beginning. That was the guy whose lap she was sitting in on episode 1. From the very beginning, there was a connection. So there's something there that she's really into.
And even when they were in the park together, she was intermeshed into his body,
she's on top of him.
Yeah.
That's pretty much in the Eric Gabby did. It just kind of ended with a fizzle. I don't know.
It just ended where they were kissing very loudly. They had so many kisses. Did you hear how loud those kisses
were? I didn't.
It was it's like they couldn't get enough of each other, which I guess bodes well for their future.
That bodes well for their future. So let's dig into this fantastic date of Tino and Rachel. Do you want to take it?
Loved it. Before I continue, I have been noticing this and I haven't said anything. I feel like Tino resembles the actor Miles Teller.
Oh my God, that's interesting. Now that you said it, yes, I could see that.
Even his voice, even if his voice too reminds me
That's
way
interesting.
Yeah.
Tino starts talking about Rachel. And I feel like that's the most I've ever heard Tino speak. Like he spoke in like maybe 4 sentences. I'm like, I've never heard him speak this much. He's speaking complete sentences. I've never heard him
speaking to the camera. Are you talking about speaking to us?
In general, just speaking. I don't think I
okay.
ever hear Tino speaking.
Oh,
maybe
really?
because she's always making out with him. I don't know, but I'm like, he speaks.
Tino brings Rachel to meet his parents, and Tino's parents are coming in hot.
The dad was like, what are you hoping to find? And Tino goes on to say, it was very interesting that Tino went on to say that basically he's going to propose at the end of this.
Yeah.
And his dad said, well, we're going to talk about that. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Dang. The dad's like, we're going to talk about that outside. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I have to admit that it was impressive how Tino stood his ground with his dad. Yes. The dad is not buying
not easy.
What he says is this fairy tale.
Yes.
You couldn't possibly, have gotten to know each other enough to be in love, to get married. And Tino's like, nope, I'm 100%. I'm in it. I'm going to do this. And the father was not having it. He's like, I don't know. So then Rachel, while Tino and the dad are talking, Rachel and his mom is speaking.
Yes.
And, she has this very skeptical face. And she's like, yeah, well, this isn't real. And they're just like, well,
yeah,
it is
the
real.
mom,
like, well,
the mom was not having it. The mom was like, oh yeah, well then tell me, what are his best traits?
Yeah.
What do you actually like about him?
Right. And Rachel,
what do you know about him? Yeah.
And that he gives blood all the time. Was that a little bit of a red
flag? That was interesting. No, he's checking to make sure he doesn't have an STD. No, that wasn't a red flag. But I thought it was a note. I was like, okay, that's interesting that came up. But it was interesting that the mom was grilling her too, like, how much time do you have to figure things out? Just 2 weeks? In 2 weeks, we're either going to be doing with heartbreak or a wedding. Like the mom was not having it either. That was like stage 1.
Yeah.
Then we got to the final end stage where Rachel sat down with Tino's dad. And say what you about Rachel, I felt bad for this girl. She was just getting like such a terrible person.
I did not feel bad because you know what? Someone needs to give her a reality check. Mr. Franco says to Rachel, convince me that you know the real Tino. I was like, that's a great question. Do you know the real Tino?
He was like going in, like, convince me.
Convince me. You're saying all the right things, but we see it as this fairy tale. So prove it. What do you have?
Said, I thought his most harsh line was when he said, "This is your second go round."
Yes. Yeah. That was. I was
like, what?
I was like,
what? But he's like, this is your second go round. Do you actually want to find love or do you want to just get married? Yeah. I was like, who is this guy? Like when he said that, I was like, oh my God.
I have to say though, she did handle it well. She handled it without showing any of the turmoil she was feeling. She did still have that pleasant, innocent face on and answered him as best as she could. But man, did he give it to her. Oh,
he gave it to her, man. I know that you didn't feel bad for her. I felt bad for her because if that would have been me, I would have been crying because he was going in. Like when he said the second go around line, I'm like, he is just breaking this poor girl down. I felt for Rachel.
Yeah. And she was whining to the producers saying, I thought I was going to cry. And, and it's, listen, I feel like he spoke the truth. Mr. and Mrs. Franco are speaking truth. Yes. Did they do it in a very unpolished way? Sure they did. Sure they did. But, they have a lot of concerns and they're not going to mince words. They're going to be like, listen, this is the way it is. This is how we feel. So funny enough, though, Tino seemed to have thought it went okay because he said to Rachel, they adored you. I promise you, they adored you.
And what I love about Rachel, she's like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. He's like, no, they did. She's like, no, they did not. I like how she's very simple. Like they did not like me. They did not want me to be there. I thought that was interesting that he said that. And it made me think like, Did they? Like, 'cause he said that so, like, I believed him. But like, if I was Rachel, I'd say the same thing. But he said
Yeah.
like, oh, they totally adored you. First of all, he used the word adored. I'm like, that's not what I would use. That's not the adjective I'd say that your dad felt.
Yeah.
That was interesting to hear that perspective. And she called him on it. But then he goes on to admit that he's been falling in love with her.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah. She admits the same. I want a future with you. I'm falling for you. He is unperturbed by his parents' reaction, which also makes me wonder, is he the type of guy that's like, well, I'm just always going to go against what my parents want because I know better? Like,
No.
is this more a show of, I'll show you, mom and dad? Or?
No, I liked it because, as you pointed out earlier, he was standing his ground. His parents were coming at him,
Yeah.
and it's just like, this is how I feel. This is what I'm going to do. And so it's somebody who will stand up for himself, who will stand up for his woman, and that I appreciate it because sometimes your parents will have an opinion about your relationship, and some people will give in, and other people will be like, "This isn't right," and he called them on it, and I appreciated that part of Tino, seeing him say like, you know, I'm going to do what I want to do, and this is how I feel. I'm going to follow my gut, and I thought, good for you, Tino.
Overall, who do I feel really, truly is in love with Rachel? I really think Zach is really the one who's truly in love with
I think Tino is legit in love with her.
I don't know. I just feel more, maybe just because Zach gets good at it. I don't know, but he seems a lot more effusive. He seems a lot more open hearted and open with her, which I feel like she loves. Tino, I mean, it wasn't until now that Tino really started to give us the impression he was having such seriously deep feeling. I don't know.
I feel like Zach is probably in love with the way that Rachel would fit into his life because she would fit and blend perfectly with his family. Tino feels like he's a person that follows his gut, and his gut says, I'm in love with this woman. And we saw him getting jealous, which indicates that he did care whether or not you appreciate jealousy or not.
Right.
But I do feel like Zach, maybe he is in love with her, but she fits very easily into his lifestyle. And the producers were giving them a lot more situations where it was like romantic love, i.e., let's watch us see how much we have in common, that kind of BS.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But Tino's, their dates were different. They didn't have that same sort of people being pushing them together. It was more of a natural connection from people that seemed totally different from each other.
Right. I there's a lot to be said for that. Yeah. Any closing thoughts?
I think the closing thought is I'm looking forward to this being over because they've been dragging this out for a long time. Let's just have Rachel end up with Tino, which we know is going to have to happen. And then Gabby, I don't know. Let's just get these girls in a reasonable relationship.
Yeah, I'm ready for it to be over. I can't wait for the reveal of who they're going to be with. Will there be engagements? I mean, it doesn't have to be an engagement, right? I would imagine someone could just say, couldn't they accept her rose and then be like, yeah, but I don't want to get engaged? I don't know if that's allowed.
Yeah, you could. It's not like you're going to get, kicked off the show. Usually there's an engagement, but.
All right. Well, I'm curious to know how this will all end. Tiffany, you're the most incredible person.
Thank you.
And I think I'm falling for you. But it's time to say goodbye.
To love.